the message, a call for unity. Emotion is the message, a call for unity.
For a long, long time, we've been deceived by the illusion. We're called by different names, and this has served to just confuse us. When all is said and done, to be one's our revolution. We never stand alone, 'cause unity's our resolution.
Alafia, I'm Dr. Gloria Lattimore, peace host and producer of OmniU Presents the H3O Art of Life show. And I'm vigorous and energetic because I've got these two great guests in the studio, plus I had a big glass of carrot and ginger and apple and celery juice. So
Absolutely great.
that always helps
Sounds
to
good.
invigorate you. But I've got Ray Aikens with me again, and I'm glad to have you back, Ray. And
Thank
Toure
you.
Muhammed, and we're going to continue our conversation about consumer education. And I've already dubbed my guests as Ray as the bad cop and Toure as the good cop, because Ray thinks that he's bringing the bad news, and
Yeah.
Toure likes to give the positive news. But what African people have been, see, we talk about optimism and pessimism as two sides of a coin. African people were always realists.
Right.
They always looked dead on truth. They always looked on dead on reality, and they handled whatever it was that they had to handle it. So we're not trying to run from the things that you have to say. Somebody needs to say them. I've been trying to say some of this stuff without nearly as much information as you have, but our people don't want to hear. Sometimes they don't want to hear the truth. A friend of mine calls it the Frederick Douglass syndrome. He said that when emancipation was declared, black people were so busy celebrating that Frederick Douglass could not tell them that they were not free, that the Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in states that had none, and didn't free them in the states that did. So that it actually was null and void on the face of it, and there was never such a thing as emancipation. So, but Frederick Douglass couldn't tell black people that because they were busy celebrating their illusory freedom. You gonna have to tell us what we need to hear, even though we busy celebrating all kind of holidays and making all kind of plans to spend all kind of money that we don't generate ourselves, that we have to depend upon others to generate for us, and then, let us, by the sweat of our brow, try to get some of it, get a hold of it, some of it. So you're gonna have to tell us just what kind of condition we're in, because we said we're gonna talk about consumer education, and you walked in here with the curriculum. What do people
Absolutely.
have to
Well,
learn in school about consumer education?
Well, as you may know, I spent many years, I taught in the public school system. I taught in the high school level. I taught at the elementary school level. I taught in the special education classroom. I taught in self-contained environments. I've taught in environments where the students were handicapped. I've taught in urban, inner city areas, you might say, mostly minority population. That's what the code word for urban, I think, is today. And I've also taught in upscale communities in Oak Park, where the school system is very highly rated. And I've been through all the various grade levels in one form or another. I'm also a former fellow. I was a charter fellow at the urban, the Academy for Urban School Leadership. It's kind of a think tank. We're trained by Golden Apple Award winners. It was a 2-year program. I left prior to receiving my Master of Arts in Teaching, and it was because by then I had become kind of
Disillusioned
with the process, and it was an absolutely great experience. I happened to work closely with a psychologist on the staff there, and the area that I wanted to explore and develop an expertise in was resiliency. And there's a psychologist by the name of Albert Bandura who was making a number of the initial advances in the education into learning theory. How do you pick, even as I'm sure you know, we can take people in a porous environment, and from that a millionaire can come. How come, despite the environment, you have successful people come out of almost any milieu? You talk about the immigrants earlier. You said they land here with nothing, and 10 years down the road, they're multi-millionaires. What is it about this way of operating, this way of thinking, this way of selecting an identity and a goal, and to fuel all your motion, all your movement, as though you had a sense of purpose? How come it's abundant in some people and practically negative or in a deficit level in many, many others? So I left education, having spent time, but fundamentally realizing that my goal of leaving my business career and going back to school, I had the idea that I wanted to give back to the community. My life has been so charmed. I'm so grateful. And I did, like many elders, you get to a stage in life when you want to go back and you want to give to others. So that was my goal. The system chased me out. I wasn't received my ideas. You've got an education machine. It's driven like a factory. There are all kind of things that drive, but another psychologist, Alfred Adler, who really, his writing, his work is never left me and it touched me on a deep level. I mean, that's the kind of person I was. I was being ruled, driven by my heart, but life said, wake up. This is the way the game is played. But Alfred Adler said that it doesn't matter what kind of a community or a situation people find themselves in. Where there is a school, the obligation of the school is to make up for whatever deficits are operating or circulating within that area. So, in theory, that nails it, don't it? Mm-hmm. So what? If we find ourselves with teenage mothers or, kids being born out of wedlock or single parent households, etc., like that. And if there are deficits that are operating in that family circle, then the role of the school should be to do its best to harmonize, okay, or to address those imbalances. It calls for real teachers, not people who are in unions and who are people who are really, the system has morphed into something that takes care of the workers in the system to the detriment of the students. Now, don't get me wrong, I got tons of teacher friends. My undergraduate education was in teaching, and quite curiously, I didn't go into teaching right away. I went into business and subsequently got a master's degree. I did finance, I did investment banking, I owned businesses, I worked in corporations where we acquired companies. As an investment banker, I provided funds to raise funds in the market to finance the public schools. Jane Byrne, I worked on a lot of bond deals when she was mayor. Not a lot, but the crucial ones. I played a key role in that process. So what I'm saying is, business, you get to see how there's a concept. advertising, marketing is the backbone of this country. And you all were so right when you were saying that before. We throw out all the time an idea, a concept, an image. Many aspects of it are illusionary, but the goal is to have the people buy it and believe in it. Almost like this goes all the way back. Let me say two things in case I'm getting you lost. Think about this. Birds, by their very nature, never eat more than what's might go. If they ate in excess, they wouldn't be able to fly the distances they travel.
Right.
They're efficient, okay? You look at any ecosystem and growth, you can't have sustainable long-term growth if you eat chewing up all the grass. You follow me? Because there's a balance. So in economics, in finance, in marketing, in business, you never have more development than what the consumer can basically support. If you were to establish a system that, let's say, is hell-bent on becoming the dominant economic model, to rule the world, to conquer other countries, to expand and to possess, then one's thinking might be that I need to grow like all get out. So you do things to encourage growth by nature. I don't care if you go all the way back to, let's take a mythical Garden of Eden where everybody hunted, grew their own food, did what they, bartered maybe in some cases, but they all got by. They didn't need to work 8 hours a day or so. They may have engaged in other things. As they settle down, they form a community. They, instead of moving around all the time, they find an area that's pastures, got, land, raise animals, I could raise much. We can build schools, we can build churches, but now you need protection so people don't come and raid. You're growing and you're saving surplus. You're saving to carry you through tough times. People see those savings and they'll come and they'll take them away. So you need a police force, you need guards, what have you, right? But to really tap and maximize that growth, you have to develop a system that incentivizes people to really want to work.
Am
I getting too long?
No. I gotta get in here, right here, because you just said a key word, and that key word is growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for my business to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I was only prepared to just stay afloat, not spend more than was taken in, and I don't know what kind of vision I had, if I had one at all. Talk about that, about the need of people who go into business to be prepared. Let me give you an example.
Yes.
as I hand this over to you. I know some millionaires that came out of the hood.
Yeah.
I know some.
Sure.
And they, in fact, they got an organization where they do some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this one particular one that I know, so when they started their business, they had this great idea and it worked just the way they thought.
Mm-hmm.
And one day they got an order. They had to turn it down.
Mm-hmm.
The order overwhelmed them.
Sure.
There was no way
Mm-hmm.
they could meet that order.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to shut down, retool, re-equip, and do a whole lot of stuff, and then start again, because they were not prepared for this windfall.
And yet
They did
went
not
out-
know it could go there.
They went out and marketed themselves to get the order and yet didn't have the
They
capacity
started-
to
they
deliver
started-
the product?
They started.
That's insane.
they-
I'm not
well,
trying
wait
to be
a minute. We're not going to
offensive.
say they're not insane. We're going to say
I'm
they
not trying to
two-
be offensive.
No. We're going to say that they are two people who decided on this great idea. They decided that people don't become vegetarians necessarily because they're interested in their health, but they become vegetarians because because of vanity, because they're interested in their appearance.
Right.
So they came up with a product that would let you entertain your appetite while maintaining your vanity. You could consume these calories without increasing your weight. Jumped out, the product jumped out of sight on them. They didn't realize just how great this idea was, and they weren't prepared. So you said they were insane, but they were brothers from the hood who had a hustle. Every brother from the hood knows that you are respected if you have a hustle. If you out there always broke, you know, Kanye and them wrote a song about that.
Right.
You know, if you out there always broke, the women are not interested in you. Nobody's really interested in you. So you gotta have a way of revenue stream. You gotta have a way of getting hold of some money, and that may not be a job. You may not be able to find a job. So you come up with a hustle. This for them, this started, they had umpteen hustles before, but this hustle jumped out of sight.
See, each one
So
is
what
a
are you saying
lesson.
they should
Each
have
one
done?
teaches you, and when they had to regroup, what did they learn from that? They learned that, you know,
They learned
we
how to
had
be
an issue with
millionaires, and that's what they
capacity.
became.
Eventually, they overcame. That's what
Yeah,
I mean. Like,
right.
a lot of our growth and maturity, when I said insane, I didn't mean to imply like they had a mental deficit, but they were also blessed, because
Right.
that kind of a experience could have just brought the company down. But you see, for some reason, they were somehow resilient. There were much other qualities that these
Right, they were
people you
committed.
talked about, yeah. And what they did was they realized that they may have made a mistake, and we got a plan. And and then they probably said, well, how much equipment do I need to get this kind of business? And then, in other words, they began to think more strategically, and that's how life teaches.
That's right.
And that's
right. You know, I had I'm putting this component into my business that, and it's on this very point, we should have conditional plans. If contingency plans. If I get a huge order that's out of my capacity, then what do I do?
Yeah.
So I have a network of people who do marketing,
Exactly.
who do PR. So if I get a huge client, I already have the people I can pull in that I know what they can do. I know the quality of service, and we can handle it from Chicago to anywhere in the country. So that's what I hope they know. It sounds like they learned from that, because I know if it happened again, they were ready for it again.
Yeah, well, they said they couldn't be half-stepping. See, they couldn't
That's right.
half-fill that order.
Isn't that interesting?
See,
You see the
knew,
growth?
They
and
knew
you
not,
see-
they
yeah.
knew to turn
Immediately.
the order down
Yeah.
rather than fulfill
That's
what
right.
part of the order they could get together under their current arrangements. And because they had the foresight to say,
That's right.
we can't fill this order, and then go
I know
and get
so many
themselves
people who
together.
said, yeah, and take it, take a
Right.
cash advance or
That's
something
right.
like that, a down payment,
That's
and
integrity.
run and just, but that's.
I had
kudos to your
what I had
your
as
people
a
there.
as a business was I didn't want it to be a delicatessen, and I didn't want it to be fast foods, but it resembled those in some ways. And and we were doing whatever we were doing, and one day the phone rang and a factory placed an order. We had to lock the doors. Couldn't let no customers in
Right.
because we had to fill that order.
Fill that order.
And everybody, we were all, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And after that, it got to the point in which if that company called, if somebody answered the phone and they said that name out loud, we just went to trembling because we knew
How
we
did they
couldn't.
hear about you? I'm curious. Where'd they get your number from?
Somebody that worked at that factory had come there and had something to eat.
See, word of mouth. Isn't that
That's right.
powerful?
And the
mouth.
next
Word of
thing
mouth,
we
yeah.
knew, we had a phone call. We a little
Absolutely.
mom and pop business with the
Absolutely.
kids and all of that in the store. I'm trying to teach my children to want to be entrepreneurs. I don't want them to think in terms of getting a job.
Right.
So that I make everybody come after school, and you all have jobs, and you have to be over here, and you have to be over there, and you have to do this, and all of that. And when the phone would ring, and somebody picked up the phone, and they'd hear that name, they'd holler, shout it out loud, and we'd know that we would have to lock the doors. We could not let nobody could walk in, because it took our full concentration and everything we could do. And usually after we filled that order, we didn't have any more for supplies.
Sure.
Because they bought out a whole factory,
Right.
Now, and we never could predict when it was going to be our turn again, when the whole factory was going to want what we
Right,
had again.
right.
But we tried to be prepared. We had an overabundance of stuff, and we had the kind of stuff that is perishable. If you don't sell it,
Right.
it's gone. You can't keep it, especially when you're dealing with food. The city will come through on you
Right.
and test the temperature and look at dates on stuff. So it got to be a thing. But growth, you need to have a contingency plan that says, okay, do we actually ever have goals? Do we ever set our sights on how much of this we need to sell in order to cover our overhead, in order to turn a profit? Do we have a projection as to how long we can stay in business? You said another word, sustainable.
Yeah, yeah. And
What about that?
Underlying the concept of sustainability is what this has to be a law because it's the law of growth. You have to spend less than you earn. You have to accumulate savings so that you can reinvest it in the business and provide for rainy days. That's the law of growth.
That's right.
Other than that, you are always living on the edge of a razor. Anything can come up. We know how life is. We know that there are storms. Matter of fact, if anybody will look at their life, you can see it as a process of like a roller coaster. You have your high points, you have your low points, and that's a cycle. Life imitates that all the time. When you're going up, that's when you need to save, because when you hit that peak and it starts to come down, that's when the hard times. That's
Don't
when
buy the
money
luxury
is
car when you're going
When
up.
you're going up,
When do you get?
You
when
know
do you
people
get
like
the
that all the
luxury
time. You know that's
get the house first.
yeah.
car? No, then you're tied to a mortgage.
As soon as you get a level of cash flow, it's like somehow you're made to feel that you think that, but it's not all your fault though, because people all around are going to tell you you're a success, and that's what successful people do.
Right. And you're seeking that respect.
The old-fashioned way. And we talked about this last time I was on your show,
We'll
as a
talk
matter of
about
fact.
it again.
And when we wanted to buy a house, we had to save up a 20% down payment.
Right.
So this recent run-up, people were buying homes with no money
No
down.
money down. 500.
Now, and then once they got the home, they got a line of credit, and they were taking vacations, and something in you says this can't be right. But every day you open up the newspaper and you read, home prices are going through the roof, and people are scrambling to buy homes. Do you remember when they had the open houses, and the line was going out from the door all the way out into the street? People were walking in, and somebody was so scared another person was going to buy the house that they would sit right there and argue and up the bid up the value.
Right.
Bidding wars.
This is a true story. a builder had a buddy, and the builder built these exclusive homes. Let's say you and I like that. And I come to you, and I said, look, buy this house. He said, well, how much is it? It's beautiful, spacious place. You look right away and you say, I can't afford that. I said, look, don't worry about it. I'm going to sell you the house at less. It's already worth $200,000 more than what I'm going to sell it to you. And you say, how much it costs? It costs $2 million. You say, are you serious? You say, you must be crazy. So you walk away.
Right.
Guess what? Somebody else buys a house, they sell it for $3 million later.
Right.
You sit there and you lay up in bed at night with your pole behind thinking what you blew by not taking that risk.
Right.
So it makes you want to, go. So you go out there and you start looking at homes, but guess who your advisor is? Your advisor is the person who's selling the house. So he or she is gonna.
He got interest.
Got interest in seeing you close that sale, and then, like I said, once you sign the papers, you can get a home equity loan several months down the road because the value of the place is just. Then I said, well, Dr. Peace.
They were putting two mortgages on houses at the point of sale.
Man, you know.
Right.
If I don't know. I didn't see contracts like that myself, but I'm told, when I bought my house, the home we own now, we actually had a larger down payment, but the rates of terms were so cheap that I could put less than what I planned to put down, use the cash that I had set aside, and start making, doing rehabs to the property like right away, dressing it up. And sure enough, in less than a year, the value had gone up over $100,000. Yeah, I could take a line of credit. The newspapers were telling me it wasn't going to end. But do you see, I was just like everybody else out there. Matter of fact, to not buy a house, people, how quick we forget, to not purchase a home, you were stupid. Because your investment would grow at a faster rate than what you could save. And then on top of that, it would grow at such a fast rate, you could draw some of it out and take a vacation or buy a computer or put a what is it, finish your basement. Yeah,
that was then.
Car.
This is now.
Yeah, but you got to understand too, and this is what we talked about before. This is the way incomes were growing. This is the way incomes are growing, and this is the way spending was going. You have to. The law of growth is if incomes are growing like that, spending is supposed to be down here, and that difference is your saving. We live in a world where they tell you that's not how you want to live.
Right.
How come with all this, everybody, I heard you mention Black Friday, right? People are going to actually camp outside the night before.
Already started 2 or 3 days.
Right. And you're going to see, when they run the newsreels, you're going to see just average people running out carrying 52-inch screen TVs and things like that. And you have to understand, this is really insane. They're not necessarily rich.
Right.
Are they making that much money? Who's saving money any time today? And speaking of savings, I'm talking too long, I'm sorry. I get excited about this kind of stuff. Walk into your bank, go into any bank right now and look for their list of interest rates that they pay on like CDs, on 1 month, 3 month and stuff. I think you have to go out 10 years and they only pay you 1%. Are you serious? They are. I'm gonna
10 years.
The government has already said we don't want you saving. Do you see what I mean? There is no incentive to save. Right now, it's all about spending. Matter of fact, the government has tried to make up for all the spending that was lost through unemployment, and now Barack Obama is facing a deficit that they say is, people they won't finance anymore. We got to cut. The debt is growing. So we talk about financial literacy. You show me evidence where financial literacy really exists, and I'm not saying this to be cynical, but this is the point. Arnie Duncan I don't know if you saw it this month. He was the former, president of Chicago Public Schools. He's now the Education Secretary of the United States. Arnie Duncan, look this up. Any of your viewers, if you don't believe me, it was around the 1st of November. He called for a financial literacy education to begin in kindergarten. He wants us to start teaching people about money, managing money, as early as kindergarten. Illinois has a law. Matter of fact, at one time in the high schools, you could be exempt if you took a test, and you were exempt from taking a consumer ed course. What's the current governor? Our governor, Quinn. He rescinded that last year, or maybe a couple years ago. Everybody's got to take no exemptions, no taking that. You've got to take it. But look at how they've managed the pensions fund in the state of Illinois. Look how they managed the government for the city of Chicago. Look how the United States has managed itself. Matter of fact, you can name Italy, France,
Greece,
Spain, Portugal, Ireland. You can go you are looking at national economies that are bankrupt.
Well,
Where is there any evidence of financial literacy? The super committee had an announcement yesterday. We failed.
Right.
What was the job of the super committee?
They need consumer education.
To do, you know what, the super committee, all they had to do was take the level of spending and bring it closer in line to where the growth was. You didn't have to end the deficits, but you had to stop the upward trajectory. They were unable to do that. I'm telling you, do you see how financial literacy is a joke? Every day, you walk outside that door, somebody wants to take your money. One way or another, they're sweet talkers. They'll use sex to, they'll say, matter of fact, what's the guy at Northwestern University? I think his name is Al Gini. He made the comment, that should be the consumer's anthem. I shop, therefore I am. We are misidentifying. We are tools. You say black people, just work to put other people into a higher status. It's become a worldwide phenomenon. It's greed run amok. And this is what happens when greed goes to such levels. And it's a fiscal, it's an economic, and it's a human disaster. But I look back to the Depression, and those people who survived that Depression, they were the ones never got in trouble with finances again. This is what's so great. It's like a forest fire. When you burn, the overbrush, when things get excess, it's burned out. And that's what we're going through right now. Ain't gonna be no heroes no more than the heroes you've been seeing anyway. They always grow. You always get so many heroes. It's more casualties that happen in something like this because they were the victims they bought the illusion. And that's the anatomy of a bubble. It's to be something, it's to dream to be something, it's to drive around and have people look at you and say, there goes so-and-so, he's so successful. It's to be dressed, it's to be admired. All those things are just, might as well be drinking poison.
Look at whose example we're following. Americans are conspicuous consumers.
America's also conspicuously broke.
We have our appetite. You say appetites run amok. This is greed run amok. This is avarice. And avarice is an insatiable appetite. No matter how much you get, it will never be enough because you can't satiate it no matter how much you pour on it.
The law of economics.
We're following people who don't know what they're doing.
Our wants are insatiable. They don't want you to think. Matter of fact, I've got articles here, and just to prove my point, noted financial analysts, they've just come out and said financial literacy is a myth. I'm sorry to have to say this. It's a myth.
Wait a minute. No, this is Toure's information.
The only way.
This Carlos Barrios, did you read him?
No.
He sent out an article I'm trying to see where, no, I'm trying to see where this ends so I can give you the citation. If I can't give you the citation, I'll send you an email. But he's talking about this, and he said, the economy now is a fiction. The first 5-year stretch of transition from August 1987 to August 1992 was the beginning of the destruction of the material world. We have progressed 10 years deeper into that transition phase by now, and many of the so-called sources of financial stability are in fact hollow. The banks are weak. This is a delicate moment for them. They could crash globally if we don't pay attention. Now people are paying attention. When you talk about illusions, he said the economy is a myth.
Of course it is.
There's nothing underlying this but the confidence of people that there is
There
one.
have been people crying all throughout this growth about the excesses, about the overbuilding, about the consumption that had risen to the level of just being gross and despicable. But do you think that stopped anybody from, Gucci? That was you name all the name brand designers and what have you, and then just drive by any inner city public school and you'll see the fashion show. This is amazing. This is incredible.
It is. But it reminds me of, let's say, a basketball team that has gone through a horrific season.
Yeah.
Then the coach and the manager, the management, has to go back to basics.
Yeah.
And they may take a basketball and say, look, team, this is a basketball. Okay, let's take them all the way back to the basics. So each community's got to kind of huddle around. The basic thing that we can do is start producing. Get some of this earth.
Land.
Mr. Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington. We can go down a list of those who talked about, okay, let's start producing. And economics 101. Let's produce enough for ourselves, and then the surplus we sell to somebody else.
Right. But that's
do for self.
Do for self.
That calls for a whole new identity.
But it's been done.
Of course
It's
been
doable.
done, and it's going to
feasible.
continue to be done.
And
but
you don't
if
need
you're
a
talking about a
whole
mass
lot of people to do
movement, we got a long way to go.
But we gotta start.
You
A
really
journey
don't need
of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Let me
That's
tell
right.
you, ain't no doubt about it. Before this thing is over, jobs that people say they would never do, they're going to be doing them. Jobs that people thought was beneath them, they're going to be doing them. And when they learn, when we develop greater appreciation for what it takes to really grow our family that we supposedly love, and when we stop doing excess and start abiding by, actually they're just fundamental laws.
Right.
For survival, for growth, this not rocket science. But who wants to do it the hard way?
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
But all it's going to take is one group, one small group of people. Remember what Obama did? Black folks wasn't believing.
No.
I never thought we'd be having a black
won
president.
Iowa. That little small, he won one small state. We said, wait a minute.
He can win.
Then he won another one. It takes small incremental wins.
And marketing.
Because after he won, he had to tell everybody he won.
Well, that's where the resilience comes in. You see?
That's right.
Because you're going to take some hits. You're going to take some defeats. You're going to run into some hard times. But there's a vision. There's something you see, or there's some sense of this is right what I'm doing.
Right.
This is my time. Because I'm telling you,
Land
I would have done.
Land is fundamental.
It's fundamental.
You cannot be talking about an economy if you do not have the raw materials.
That's right.
On which economy is ultimately based. All this stuff, paper money, and all these things that you create out of ether. do not in fact constitute a real economy. A real economy has land, it has resources within the land from which you can derive food, clothing, shelter, medical, health
That's right.
resources. People, you can't. Thomas Todd talked about some black people as hydroponic. He said they were grown in water. They had no roots, they had no attachment to the soil. You cannot be this far removed from land and not be extremely dependent. There are people who understand this. Just like there are people who are homeschooling their children.
Right.
There are people who are home churching. There
That's
are
right.
people who have just withdrawn from the madness.
Right.
And there are people who actually weren't farmers, didn't live on farms, began to get that message, started buying land, started moving onto land, started coming up with food cooperatives where people could go and they could buy things together and buy them more cheaply. We have to begin what, in Kwanzaa time they call cooperative
That's
economics. You have to begin to work together.
That's right.
Somebody told me they don't have block clubs anymore. There used to be block clubs.
We still have a
They
few.
weren't dedicated. They
a
weren't
few.
dedicated to the things they needed to be. They were dedicated to the lamp out in front of your house being like the lamp next door, and how high would your grass grow. Those are cosmetic things. But some way, either in churches, because churches have the largest concentration of people at one time. Block clubs have a few people in the block. But we need to come together in communities, in groups, and make decisions about how we gonna eat, how we gonna transport ourselves from here to there, how we gonna do things that are necessary for us to do, because the way we're living now is not sustainable. And when you said that magic word, sustainability, listen.
By law,
if you
Dr.
can't
Peace,
sustain,
it is not sustainable.
If you can't sustain
That's right.
what you're doing, then you know that it is going to end at some point when you're not prepared.
That's right. That's right.
And if
you
you
have
really
no power over
study that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you don't have any power over it. There's no control. There's no self-determinism in just being a consumer.
But I know if I was a person who had the ability to step back, to recognize and identify what a cycle looks like when things are going up, what a cycle looks like when it's going down. I save my money going up, and when the economy falls, I buy stuff cheap. People would be selling homes, they liquidating, and you get them at a fraction. On the downside is when you buy them. So when everything is going up, you don't want to be spending money, but that's counterintuitive. You follow me? So the kind of education that could be like that represents and could be delivered to, it's not allowed in the curriculum. I mean, that's all. We serve a corporate world. Politicians serve the corporations. Military serve the corporations. Everywhere there's an issue or some aspect of servitude, and seldom do you see individual choice. Do you see the stuff that makes up a person capable of planning and dreaming? I mean, those are the hallmarks. The laws are irrefutable. Anybody can grow, anybody can prosper. You just need to be shown how and stop living.
But there's a new C word out.
What's that?
It's called cartel. And they're talking about groups of corporations, the oil cartel, the pharmaceutical cartel. See, we out here trying to be individuals, and even corporations aren't trying to be individual. Even corporations are banding together with other corporations that have similar interests in order to increase their ability to compete in this world.
Right. and
How
crush
how in the-
competition, which makes it even harder at this stage of the cycle and of our economic development for the small person to even get started.
So how is a small
you can have a burger
businessman
place without,
who
unless
has-
it's a franchise almost. You follow what I'm
Right,
saying?
Right. But
'Cause-
how is a small businessman who is only one corporation, and usually a not-for-profit corporation by default?
Right.
He didn't go into business to
Right.
be not-for-profit. But how is a small businessman who is a small corporation going to expect to survive if he is not doing what you're doing, which is building on a model of cooperation with other corporations so that you can compete?
Right.
You know, we at the baby steps. We at the point at which we just trying to figure out how to become one little corporation that does
Right.
the dry cleaning, or one little corporation that does the fast food, or one little corporation that does this or that. We not only need an explosion of those, but we need cooperation among those. We need, if somebody, if you can't fill an order. See, this is how it used to be on Maxwell Street. If you ever been to, you too young, if you
I
ever been
remember.
to Maxwell Street, from downtown to
Right.
where what used to be 12th Street, Halsted Street,
Halsted.
and that area.
I grew up there. Yeah.
Okay.
Going every Sunday.
If you walked into one of those storefronts and you asked for a helicopter propeller, this person would tell you he first looked for it, knowing he didn't have it, but he'd have you in the store while he looked for it in his inventory so that your eye might fall on something else, you might buy something impulsively. But after that, he would walk you to the other person who did have it so that they kept that money down there. And not only that, they gave each other rewards for references. So you refer this customer to me, I'm going to give you something for doing that.
That's right.
I'm going to refer customers to you.
That's right.
We have got to start thinking
That's what I was
like
really
that.
trying to describe earlier when
Go
I
ahead.
talked about the village. It's a mutual cooperation
Absolutely.
concept.
It's survival
Really,
we
it's
talking
human
about.
nature. First of all, if you treat people right, if you have a product to market that's not crap, you know, if you give good service, your reputation grows. And,
That's right.
you know, like the doctor who left and the
Right.
guy that moved in his place, nobody knew
No
who he was. He
reputation.
had nothing. He could have better marketed himself.
That's right.
And got, but it is contact from one to another. Some companies can throw ads out there, or they can imply that if you don't have this, you just a chump or you ain't nothing, you know, and then they
Right.
can make people want to go buy. But that's the unsustainable approach. All things that are sustainable, they have something inherent in them that other people grow by being associated with. You know, people are treated fairly, and you get a feeling like, I'm not trying to get no holy smoly kind of thing, but I'm just talking about fundamental
Integrity.
business.
Right.
Yeah.
Integrity.
You know, it's become
Ethics.
a joke in so many places now, but I'm telling you, you can almost go into any area in this city and open up some kind of operate some kind of an enterprise, and if it borrows on those concepts of treating others fair, you're gonna grow. I was
right.
fortunate enough to work under the founder of the Rayner Funeral Home, the senior, and I got to see him in so many different capacities.
Well, that's a whole nother animal.
But
Those people,
but those were the principles
people
that
with
he
integrity.
observed. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you got to see how you get a reputation.
Right.
You can't get a reputation by being like the Foreman Brothers automobile dealership, because then you get shot up.
Right.
You follow what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
You do people wrong. You sell them a used car and they drive out the lot and it breaks down, and you know
And the
they
next
don't want to even tow it back. All this stuff. They come back and kill you. You know, that's so. To me, it's so common sense. But you seen the latest thing about Attorney General Lisa Madigan? She had a press conference, I think, yesterday, and she said she's the collection companies have.
The tactics that they use.
They're taking you to
They're
jail
harassing
now.
people
They're taking them. They're arresting you and bringing you into court. And she
Arresting
said
you.
it's the fastest growing collection business in the state of Illinois right now.
Wait a minute.
Let me give you a perfect example.
Wait,
Mother's
come
driving
on.
her car.
You cannot talk that fast. When you're saying things like
I'm going to
that.
give you a perfect example.
Okay.
Mother picks up her daughter from school, driving home, and she's got a broken tail light. And we've all done this before. Policeman pulls her over, and when he goes to check her credentials, he finds out she's got a warrant outstanding because she didn't show up in court on a collection. It may have been a TV set or something she purchased on credit. Anyway, she didn't bother going to court. The collection agency that's processing the account, they issues a warrant for their arrest, and they have the judge.
This is how they get arrested, because they get a warrant.
Yeah, so it's a warrant. So
I
the
thought they
cop
just got a
checks the ID.
judgment.
No, that's what I'm saying. It used to be judgments. Now, judgments don't get it. They take your butt to jail. So here she is with her daughter in the car. They have to take her out, handcuff her, and the kid is, somebody has to get the kid. The kid is terrified.
Traumatized.
Mommy, what's going on? And that's the fastest growing industry in the state of Illinois right now.
And so there was
The collection business.
How did I miss that? You said Lisa Madigan made an announcement about
She
it?
had a press conference within the last couple days. You'll find that out. And she said it's flourishing in the state of Illinois right now. And she's going to issue, she wants everybody to know, if you're doing that and bringing people in to the courts and having them arrested like that, she said, I'm going to put a stop to it because it just isn't fair. But do you see the steps people will go?
Well, do you
see how inhumane we've become?
Inhumane? What do
Did
you
you see
mean
the policeman spraying I always say we. You see him spraying the mace on the people who are protesting?
The pepper spray.
That's their job.
Right.
When the collector was on my behind about our mortgage payments, talking about threatening me, it was a brother on the other line I was talking to, and I was telling him how I'd been used, how my wife and I had been used, ripped off, and abused by this creditor. And I said, how can you work? Do you know what the kind of institution you're working from? You know what he said?
What?
Well, hey, it's just my job, man.
Hey,
it's just my job.
That's the mentality. That's the consumer education that we get. We get the
so
notion
when you know
that
that
you
kind
need
of
to get
people
a job.
out there, you know, when that's who you're dealing with, you make it a point for the rest of your life. You never get into a relationship like that. You change your whole way of living, and in the process, a new self will emerge. It is no doubt, no if, and, or buts about it. It could be as successful as that person wants to be. No if, and, or buts about it. It doesn't matter if it's a depression. It doesn't matter if everybody around you are jumping out windows because they bankrupt. That is the seed for which a successful individual can emerge. That's law. It's law. It is so simple. Who's teaching that? You won't get it in the schools. You won't. They won't even allow you to do it.
Then why did you say earlier that the schools are supposed to take over this function of preparing people? It's not the schools, it's the family.
Well, what I'm saying, I agree with you. I agree with you.
The school is never going to do that. It was never intended to do that.
I agree, but some of our families are not able to perform that function.
They
need support.
We have to fill in the blank.
That's what I'm saying. And the school is an organization that is a
not
source of learning that can give lunches, can be a resource in so many areas. Yet it's like ran like an insane asylum.
We got 5 minutes. We just got carried away.
It's an example. It's an example of other communities. It's something that's so wonderful about the Jewish community.
Absolutely.
You got Hebrew school.
Absolutely.
That's separate from the public school.
That's right.
That's separate from the synagogue. They learn their culture. They learn their history. They learn business acumen. They learn about economics. We can do no less. We have to take that responsibility to teach our children, teach ourselves, get it from everywhere.
Jews marry their own kind. they trade with their own kind.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take money outside the community.
I have got to attach to that.
It goes out.
I got to attach to that when you say that they have schools where they teach their children their culture, their language, their history, and so forth. What we need to understand is most of the efforts on our part for mentoring our children is to teach our children how to succeed in school. They are teaching their children how to succeed in life.
That's right.
And that's the thing, that's our challenge, is not necessarily teaching our children how to do the SAT or the whatever these other Iowas or California, all these tests. That's the school's job, and we ought to keep them to the fire on that, doing their job. But our job is to see to it that our children are equipped to survive and to thrive and to be sustainable as a community. That's us.
That's right.
And I want to say something I saw so many times. This is the truth, so help me. I had a special ed student. I taught a summer class in consumer education, and this girl had been already earmarked as educational or learning challenged and what have you. Tears almost came to my eye the day I had her standing at the blackboard and forecast the economic outlook over the next six to 9 months, and for her to do it as good a job as if you were reading or listening to a reporter on TV. Again, I say this isn't rocket science. Sometimes what I loved about special ed is that when you got a room with only 12, 15 students, a lot of learning can take place versus a room where there's 25 to 35 students. It's a whole different ball game. Our classrooms are overcrowded because the education system itself is bankrupt. No learning is taking place. We become daycare centers.
Well, they're going to have this longer school days, so no learning can take place over a longer period.
This is true.
We've got to change, because what we're teaching the kids is not about survival. And I know you're running out of time.
So
Not close with this story.
You have to do it parallel to the school system, not in it, but parallel to it.
Self-determination.
The model is designed to serve the student, and you have to look at to what extent they're being supported. But everything that takes place in the community should serve the young people who are coming up. It should strengthen them, it should give them principles and give them values. And when you don't see that happen, you don't have to know or read their case files. All you have to do is see what's going on in the community, and you can tell to what extent deficits are in effect and operating and need to be addressed. And you can look at the institutions in that community, and one needs to assess whether or not they're achieving it. You know, pick any school, pick any community, their test scores, their annual progress rate, you know, for most of the schools, they've been flatlined for a decade. Where does the idea even emerge that learning is taking place in most of the public schools? Pick any school, pull it up. The Tribune has it. You can go back 10 years and you look for the progress and it'll just be a flat line. What is going on? This is madness. This is insane. And who do you have up? Let me tell you, there are some communities where if they had that kind of productivity, it'd be a revolution. The whole organization would be turned over and thrown out on their behinds. And I started to use a stronger word. But the evidence is always there. Don't fool yourself. Don't buy illusions. The data is right there, and it shows to what extent we're not being served. And it is so profound. It is so...
Moja is the message, a call for unity.
Let us share